really put pressure on my marriage, my husband became incredibly depressed. Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. This is quite a personal video for me, the advice that I would give my formerly ill self. The person I was, experiencing so much pain, feeling alone. By sharing my experiences, I hope that I can shine a light for some of you on your recovery journeys, some of the things that you might be feeling and experiencing. Hi, I'm Rachel. I used medical medium and emotional freedom techniques in my recovery from chronic fatigue, fibromylgia, hypothyroid and irritable bowel syndrome. And this channel is all about emotional health during recovery, with the odd medical medium lifestyle video thrown in for good measure. So the first thing that I would say to myself is, Rachel, slow down. When I first got ill, I was so desperate to find a solution that I was in such an incredible hurry. So I never stopped to ask myself when I tried a new protocol or a new treatment method or even test whether it felt right, whether it was safe for me. And some of the worst decisions I made were made in a hurry. So I cleansed too extremely. If a doctor suggested something, I would throw myself headlong into it. I did things like liver flushes and coffee enemas that stripped me of my vitality. I tried stupid high-fat diets, even though intuitively I knew that they weren't the solution. And the reason I recommend for Rachel to slow down is because it took years for her to discover that slow and small changes would make the biggest difference. It took years for her to work out that slow changes would be the thing that would speed up her recovery. And I only really learnt this lesson when I started medical medium, when I'd actually run out of money. So I couldn't buy loads of supplements. I had to take things very slowly and at a pace that I could handle. And by slowing down, I was able to work out what was working and what wasn't and make adjustments as required. And I learnt to tune into my body, because when you're not rushing around in such a hurry, you actually can listen to the signs that it's giving you and fine tune as required. So the next thing I'd recommend is, Rachel, just get out of your body's way. For many years, I was in my body's way, and I believed that it was everything that was external to my body that was doing the work, not my actual body. The food, the supplements, the special doctors, the saunas, the enemas, the everything. I thought that those were the things that was getting me better, not actually that my body was doing the work. And I wish that I'd known this earlier. And the reason I give myself this advice is because I was blaming my body when things weren't going wrong. And yet I wasn't getting out of my body's way. I wasn't giving my body the space and time to do its work. I didn't realize that healing was really about removing the burdens on my body, not actually giving it more burdens to deal with. The other thing that was doing was it was putting an immense amount of pressure on me. I always felt like I had to be working all the time. But when I actually realized that my body was doing the work, I could relax and the pressure was off me. So instead of coaxing my body along and feeling like I had to add in more and more things, I could take my foot off the accelerator and get out of my body's way. Just give it a few things that it needed and it would do the rest. So I became very careful about adding in new supplements or other treatments, just doing things very gently, and my body was grateful for that. Now, before I move on, one of the things that blocks us in our recoveries is being at war with our bodies. And with that in mind, I have created a guided EFT body love meditation for you. I've put the link in the description. It's got binaural beats, and it will help you to relax and start to have a more compassionate and kind conversation with your body. So if that's interesting to you, make sure you go and get your copy. When I first got ill, I used to put so much pressure on myself to get better quickly. And yes, I understood I had bills to pay and things going on. But my body wasn't going to work to my timetable. Whenever I tried a new thing, I'd give myself 3 months for it to start to work, and I always said I'll be better in 3 months. And then when 3 months passed, I'd be completely crushed and disappointed, and the cycle would continue. And all that pressure I put on myself drove me to try some really crazy things, expecting overnight results. And it didn't help that family and friends were constantly asking me, when are you going to get better? When are you going back to work? It was only in the last 18 months of my recovery, when I'd seen many years flash by and no improvement, that I decided enough was enough. I was going to get better when I got better, and it took so much pressure off me. And one of the things that really helped me was using EFT to work through the grief that I was feeling about all the time that I had lost in my life, all the things I'd missed out on. And doing that enabled me to let go and just trust the process. And this grief I often see is huge for clients. It's something that keeps us stuck and stops us moving forward. Rachel, your friends and family love you, but they don't want to hear about your health problems all the time. Now, this is a really harsh thing to say to myself, but it was something that I had to learn, and I came to this conclusion. And for me, my health and the state of my health was everything, and it had built up to this point that it became my sole focus in life because of many years of being unwell. And I look at myself in a very kind and compassionate way around this, because it is the reality. However, by talking to my friends and family about it all the time and not giving them space, it actually really strained the relationships, and it put me in a place where I was constantly frustrated and angry with their responses, because I had expectations of how and what they should say things. And I really craved their empathy. Hell, even their sympathy I wanted. I just wanted somebody to say, Rachel, it's okay, I understand you're sick. But they couldn't do that for me. I had to accept that they were not going to do that. And that's something that took me a hell of a long time to learn. The thing was, it really put pressure on my marriage. My husband became incredibly depressed, and I knew that something had to give. And I wish I'd realised this earlier. I realised that I was pushing them away. And instead of enjoying the precious time that I had with them, and these visits and interactions were so few because of my health condition, I knew I needed to make the most of those times with those people and cut them a little bit of slack as well. And look, they were not saints. They asked some crazy questions and made some really glib comments, but they're only human, and I suspect they found it really difficult to deal with seeing me in such a state. So I turned the tap off. I really stopped talking about my illness when I was around people. And I used techniques like EFT to really break through some of those quite toxic emotions I felt: anger, frustration, feeling misunderstood, all of those things. And I realized that I was dwelling too much on my situation. And what I found actually is when I stopped talking about it and complaining about it and talking about every symptom, they actually became curious and started asking me questions. But by that point, I'd actually dealt with it, and I didn't want to talk about it anymore. I wanted actually some space away from the illness. And that helped me a lot. When I was ill, a lot of my time was spent in the future. And that would be okay if it was a future that I'd concocted of me being well and enjoying life. But it was a future of destitution and continued illness and not being able to function at all. I kind of built up what was going to happen. I was catastrophizing, basically. And my mother, who's incredibly wise, gave me a bit of a reality check after I'd done this for quite some time. I'm not a fast learner, guys. And what she told me was, Rachel, just take each day as it comes. Don't think any further than each day. And it's actually a much more peaceful way to live, because you're only dealing with what you're dealing with on that day. You're not actually dealing with today plus every day in the future, which could be worse or it could be better, we don't know. I had absolutely no idea that all of this living in the future was putting me in a constant state of fight, flight and freeze. I didn't realize that all of that catastrophizing was actually keeping me stuck and putting me on course for that disaster that I imagined I was heading towards. And so learning to take each day as it came, each symptom as it came, and knowing that it would pass helped me immensely. And I adopted the mantra, this too shall pass, with every painful symptom, with every bit of fatigue, this too shall pass. And it helped me. And I really wish my chronically ill self learnt this earlier in her journey, because it would have helped her get through things with a lot more ease and a lot less struggle than it took. So my former self used to hold on to everything so tight, try and control everything, was really in a constant state of stress. I couldn't relax and trust, and this lack of trust was causing mayhem in my body. I didn't trust the healing process. I didn't trust the protocols I was following. But I think this one thing was one of the most powerful things, because there's so much stress involved in having to control everything. Because if you don't trust things, you have to control them. Otherwise, it doesn't feel safe. It was actually incredibly stressful being so invested in outcomes, but not really trusting them. And it took me getting TMJ just as my fatigue was subsiding and the hypothyroid and the fibro pain was going. It took that for me really to get to a point where I had to let go. I kind of gave up and surrendered to the process, because by that point I was just too tired to push and pull things to make stuff happen. And I didn't stop what I was doing. I still stayed on my protocols, took my supplements, but I just let go of the outcome. I just accepted that what would be would be. And of course I wanted to get better, but I knew that at that point that I could get better without the fight. And that is a much more peaceful place to be. And all the emotional work that I'd done had enabled me to get to that place where I could just be and just relax and allow stuff to unfold. What lessons would you tell your former self? And what lessons have you learnt on your healing journey? And if you want to learn how to reduce incidental stress on your healing journey, check out this video. And if you're interested in finding out more about EFT and how you can use it in your recovery, get in touch with me. And I hope you found this video useful, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.